Yo, so this live stream is called the Instability of Society and Reclaiming Self-Sufficiency. This is a talk. This is perfect right now because the fire's in LA, the economy. So I've been putting this together. What we got to do is we got to come together and we have to figure out how to make a lot of money residually, because if we don't do that with the growing instability of society, we will be at the mercy of the system and relying on others. So that's what this video is about. I am searching for my tribe, for those that are in the mind space that are in the mind space of creating self-sufficiency. I gotta do my hair. This hair thing ain't looking too shabby right now. So imagine right now a hurricane happens, a fire happens, or you're working at a job that lays you off because a change of capitalist society. It's like Blockbuster went out of business. This is happening at a fast rate, and it's going to continue to happen at a fast rate. And the help that the government can give you isn't going to be enough to survive. It's not going to be enough to keep you off the streets from being homeless. So what people need to realize that now is the time to become radically self-sufficient, radically self-reliant, and to learn again to teach their children and their offspring how to do this as well, because the systems are so fragile, you're kind of fucked, right? And we could go to the extent of resorting back to the ancestral way of just hunting, fishing every day. Ain't nothing wrong with that, you know what I mean? But for most people, it's gonna be like if you could build a business. Like I there's nothing more that I want to one day be able to build a business again. But I'm, you know what I mean? Like, but it's so hard to. It takes so much capital, and so we have this hyper individualism going on in our society, and we become so hyper individualistic that we're all going crazy because we got so much stress. Everybody's going crazy, right? Because everything's stressing them out. The cost of living, the food, the gas, the rent. It's just too damn much, right? And then here's the other thing. We all went to school. We never actually were taught how to monetize our passions, right? So like, it's not work when we're passionate about it. Like, you will never work a day in your life when you are absolutely passionate about what you do. There's a lot of people that they just break even at their businesses, and but they're passionate, so there's no stress with it, and they would rather do that. And then you got people that are making millions, but they're up to their neck in stress. Me, for the last 8 years, I've been practically homeless. I've been living in vans and cars for the last 8 years, just living underneath my means, and that has allowed me to get comfortable with very little. And right now, I just don't see it as a possibility anymore because they're starting to crack down on people that live this way. And if I ended up homeless, because it's very fragile from living that way, I had ended up homeless over 4 times, had my vehicle towed away. They were merciless. I said, dude, it's $4,000 for a new transmission. I got $4,000 saved up. I'm working while sleeping on the streets. I'm protecting myself from these other crazy people on the streets, and they still towed it away. They didn't give a fuck. So what I came to realize is we live in a dog-eat-dog world, and I've been trying to do this all through hyper individualism, living the van life, and I loved it. A lot of it went great. I was able to hike and travel and see a lot of beautiful waterfalls. I was able to experience many different jobs. I had over 120 different jobs. That I just lined another job up and I'd hop to that job and I'd keep going like that. Because to me, I grew up watching Pokemon, right? Ash Catcher from Palatown, traveling far and wide and seeing things. So that show inspired me. And the whole thing is I used to work 16 to 17 hours a day. 16 to 17 hours a day, 7 days a week as a door-to-door salesman for Kirby vacuum cleaners. And I loved it because the culture and the positivity and the management and the training was so freaking great. I was able to become the best salesman out of 300 people in my division because I had the training and the materials. By the way, that company has been in business for over 120 years, only selling door to door. I just had an amazing training platform, which allowed me from the get-go. I didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I was just able to take off and succeed. Things came to a close. My boss started to become an alcoholic. His demeanor changed. It started to change all of our personalities working at the office. And that same fruitful energy that was at that office was no longer there. So I quit. And I decided, well, the whole reason that I was working 16-hour days, 7 days a week in the first place was so that I could retire at age 30, because that's what this whole morning meetings like. You could spend the rest of your life working for someone else, or you could just follow the Kirby blueprint and open up your own Kirby office and be successful. So he gave us that speech every single morning, drilling that into our subconscious mind. Okay. And it's absolutely anybody can go right now to a Kirby office and become a factory distributor within a year. They can become a DT within 5 months if they just put in the work. It's absolutely possible. You got to take a lot of rejection, a lot of ungrateful people that don't understand your position, that aren't open-minded. You're going to see exactly how the world is and exactly how the collective mindset of humanity is, and you got to stay positive with it. But that was my first ever job after exiting out of the foster care system. It was rough, but there was such a positivity. Every single morning we sang songs about we are positive. We're like, okay, well, if you want to focus on the negative, you're going to manifest the negative. So it was the hardest job that I ever worked, but it was the easiest and the funnest because there was constantly that mental reminder every single morning, and that peer culture that we had was so strong that we just couldn't stress out. And I'm not the same person that I used to be after I left that job. I haven't been able to find a job with that positive of an environment. I've been through a whole lot since traveling. I had those vans break down. I dealt with the bullshit of being harassed by living in van life, and then temporarily being homeless and being treated like the scum of the earth, realizing that a lot of people don't even know that you literally had owned 3 businesses in the past. And so I literally went from doing my best to try to succeed, even though I didn't succeed at that business, to just traveling and living underneath my means, doing what I wanted to do anyway when I was going to retire, which was just hike and be out in nature. That's really all I really wanted to do. So I've had 120 different jobs since then. And I realized that when it really comes down to it, it's just the peer culture. It's just the culture. Do I have an ability to make a performance bonus? And I've worked jobs that have been established. I've worked jobs that were just being created. I've worked a whole lot of different things, and all while trying to better myself. But sometimes what happens in life is you get stuck in these negative cycles in your mind, and you're focusing on the negativity. And this is really easy to do, especially if you are a part of the internet and if you're addicted to watching the internet and stuff like that. Because I realized that a lot of my mindset was being brainwashed by the internet and other people's perspective of life. But the best perspective that I ever had was we are positive about everything, no matter how fucked up the world is. We don't even need to focus on that, because at the end of the day, if we're not having fun, if we're not making money, your energy is getting zapped, and then you're performing less in real life. And so like I've had over 4 brain concussions. I forgot some of this, but I'm starting to recall some of this stuff, and I've been focusing and meditating on what I learned in Kirby. We are positive. Think big, act big, get big, and that's really what my mindset is on. I'm still homeless. I'm still living in my vehicle. My calories are 1,000 a day. It's been like that for the last 3 years. I've learned to live with less, and I feel like a lot of Americans are really about to feel the suffering that I first went through. Um, when I first did the van life, I didn't. I at least had 2,500 calories all the time, you know. But I feel like as inflation gets higher, a lot of people are going to be going through a lot of suffering because anytime there's a big change in somebody's life, they're going to experience pain. It's the people that are most flexible and that can handle life that are going to make it through. So my heart goes out to all those people that are going to be homeless now from the LA fires. That, you know, this happens all the time. You get hurricanes, you get fires, you get tornadoes, you get inflation. This is the nature of the creation, the beast, the nature of the beast of creation. It's chaotic. It's chaotic, right? And so we have to learn the best way, I think, in order to ride that wave of chaos is we have to learn to be self-sufficient in a system that is very fragile. And nobody's guaranteed a job, but what is guaranteed is self-sufficiency. And if we can come together and find the similarities in our lives versus the differences, and a lot of people, you know, we're fucked up. We're fucked up. You know, we grew up in a fucked up world. A lot of people don't have patience. Like, I don't really have patience. I've been trying to learn patience in my life, but I'm very impatient, and that's something that I got to work on. And I have like honestly, the best thing that I could have ever have done if I could have found out was to go meditate with the Buddhists for like a year straight. If I could do that, I could reprogram my neurons to be calm in any situation and think things through instead of being emotional. And so I think that's one of the most important things that we can learn how to do is learn how to meditate and think things through and not be so emotional. Because right now there's a lot of instability in the world, and if we're just reacting out of emotion, we're not going to be thinking clearly. We're not going to survive. We're not going to thrive. So that's what I feel. And life's tough. Life will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. Little quote from Rocky Balboa, the fourth. You know, it's fucking brutal sometimes. You know, and sometimes, you know, there's just so much instability in the world and so much stress. To me, working a 9 to 5 is like more stressful for me than just going out there and living off the grid. I know I can hunt my food. I know I can fish my fish. I know I can build my house in a month. You know, and then I know that I'm only going to be working 3 hours a day. And everything is just really simple. I've simplified my life with the van life. I've kind of had to. I actually wanted to get out of van life after the first 5 years, but the economy just wouldn't allow it. So now I ended up being stuck there. So it's crazy, y'all. It's crazy, y'all. And it's gonna come back to like rebuilding community. And who the fuck in their right mind would send their kids to public school nowadays? Like, I don't have kids, and I could not send my kids to public school. Like, you can't even raise your own kids. If you can't guide your own kids, what the fuck is the point of having offspring? What is the point of reincarnating your carnate flesh and keeping the ancestry moving if somebody else is gonna raise your kids? That's the biggest scam of the system, in my opinion, is working your whole life so somebody else can raise your kids. And it all comes back to the fact that we're not self-sufficient. We're not taking personal responsibility. We're acting like children. And if our parents are acting like children, we're going to act like children. And so what we have to do is we have to come back to self-sufficiency, because those people that were depending on the system in LA, there's going to be a lot of chaos that comes out of that. There's going to be a lot of people that are put into their fight and flight. And there's going to be a lot of crime that comes out of that situation when people don't have their needs met, because they don't know how to grow their own food. they don't have a tightly knit community, it's fucked. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I mean, ain't nothing new under the sun. Ain't nothing new under the sun. A lot of us are burned out. A lot of us are burned out. And the only way we are going to change things is if we take 100% responsibility and learn to become self-sufficient, interconnected through community. I mean, you could totally do it by yourself. It's a little more difficult by yourself. That's what I learned to do, living the van life, traveling, being self-sufficient. And we put up with a lot of shit in our lives not being self-sufficient and not being interconnected with people that have our values in mind. We have to put up with a lot of shit. We have to sacrifice a lot of shit because we are not self-sufficient. So anyway, that's the whole thing. And many cities. I sold Kirby's in many cities and bordering states. Went all over the place. Sometimes we would drive 5 hours to do a week of sales, and places and markets that had never been touched before. We would stay in hotels. It was pretty cool. But yeah, everybody, something to think about. You know, the system did not teach us how to be self-sufficient in school. And, you know, we've seen with the California fires that, you know, you're just kind of fucked when shit happens, you know. And if you work your whole life, your retirement isn't going to be able to pay for the cost of living. So we need to take this into account, and we need to come together, and we need to learn to be interconnected and interdependent, you know. And that's just all it is to it. All right, everybody, have the best life ever, and may your eternal life be filled with absolute joy, bliss, peace, natural ecstasy, unconditional love, and absolute vitality for all of eternity. This is a fucking crazy ass, whacked out world, and it's pretty stable for most people, but at any time, shit could hit the fan. And so just kind of put yourself in a situation of like where a hurricane happens or a war happens. Like there's always wars going on in Earth. You never know when it could touch down where you're at. Shit's unstable. So we should relearn some of the skills that we have forgotten from our ancestors if we want to continue to reincarnate our flesh here on planet Earth. All right, everybody, have the best life ever. Signing out.